Aeons, the so-called gods of Honkai Star Rail that are often the subject of conversation in the worst possible sense. Because as we continue our journey through the cosmos, the ever-looming threat of an Aeon war grows bigger and bigger, further proving to us that we are the determining factor for what the fate of the universe will be, as we are the fateless one. But what are these ascended beings and where do they come from? A mystery that even baffles the great minds of the Genius Society. But in my ambition, I've set my mind on the task of finding answers. In the last installment of this series, we talked about Nous and Nanook, and we looked into the duality of destruction's entropic and negentropic forces and the role Nous plays as the indicator of if and when all is lost. And that video went absolutely crazy, but now it is time for us to continue. And in this video, we will be looking into Qlipoth, the Preservation. One Aeon that has an incredibly dark secret that I haven't heard anyone bring up until now. It has been a while since the last part of the series, and I promised you guys that I would finish it, so as we close in on this finale, there is still so much to talk about. Because this is Honkai Star Rail Aeon Ascensions Explained. Quick update, 4.2 is coming up soon, and Hoyo decided to put the special program on Friday, the same day that we were going to do the account reviews, so we are going to have to push that back a bit, because I can't miss the debut of Evanesia and Silver Wolf. On to the video. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is the same as always. I go in alphabetical order to explain how each and every single Aeon ascended, what they do, how they interact with other Aeons, and what this means for the universe as a whole. And Qlipoth is today's subject. Why only one? Well, you'll find out soon enough. So let's get into what the database suggests is the oldest Aeon known to the cosmos. None other than the idol of the IPC and the firmament arbiter, the Amber Lord themselves, Qlipoth. And like other Aeons like Ouroboros, Anna, Ho-Oh, and Long, this Aeon ascended during the Dusk Wars, the war that involved the Leviathans, aka Ouroboros' kin. And judging by the other Aeons that ascended during that time, one made it their mission to bring order to the universe, another aimed for balance, and the next searched for permanence. And the last one is, well, a Leviathan. And Qlipoth does not seem to be happy about it. So due to what is probably Dusk Wars PTSD, Qlipoth has tasked himself with preserving the universe and building a giant wall to protect from other Leviathans. Yes, this giant orange god wants to build a wall and their followers are capitalists. Rather, on the nose there, Hoyo, but that's besides the point. Any resemblances to anything in reality is entirely Aha's fault. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here. We'll get into the Amber Lord's followers later, because there is something odd about Qlipoth in general. You see, the wall is in reality three different structures working in tandem with each other. The subspace crystalline barrier, the celestial comet wall, and the great attractor base. Now, so far as I've read, I can't find anything in specific detail for what the differences are for these three structures. But the Shinjo calls the entirety of the barrier the Echidna Skywall. But we'll talk about them later as well. Because the way Qlipoth does their work is by swinging their hammer with the urgency of a frozen snail. Because each and every time Qlipoth swings their hammer, a new Amber Era is declared. And when this hammer strikes the wall, a multitude of different substances explode through the cosmos where the IPC then collects it. And these substances are scattered stardust, crystalline meteorites, divine amber, and celesta comet alloy. And they do a grand total of absolutely nothing, but be a symbol of the new Amber Era, which is anything from 76 to 240 years. The most inconsistent time system I have ever heard of. But the IPC just collects this stuff that explodes from the wall because it supposedly holds the essence of the preservation within it. Which brings me to how strange this Aeon is. Because Qlipoth works tirelessly swinging their hammer in a process that apparently no one has ever seen the entirety of, but this Aeon pays no attention to humanity at all. So either the Amber Lord is indifferent to humanity and is trying to protect something else within the cosmos from the Leviathans and the Void, or they are just protecting humans and don't really seem to care much about them at all. It could also be the stoic fixation on building the wall, so they just don't pay much attention to anything anything else. However, there is one documented time that Qlipoth did actually respond when addressed. And this is when End of the Order asked for their aid when dealing with the swarm disaster. And long story short, Qlipoth squashed the bug and encased the scattered remains in amber. So this Aeon is aware of what is going on around them. They are just intentionally unresponsive, and reliably so, because that is all we know about Qlipoth in particular. So let's address the followers of the preservation that we currently know about, because they also hold some information in regards to this Aeon. The IPC, the Architects, and the Firmament sect. This Aeon responds to neither of them, by the way. Except for that one time in the Dahlia story, but that was confirmed to be a different timeline. None of that happened in reality. Dahlia said herself that we can't reclaim our cremated memories, and we can only relive them, and the script she was using to allow us to do so was not the one the Stellaron Hunters were using at all, because we died in it. She showed us that. So no, Qlipoth never responded to Jade as far as we know. Because the most fervent followers of the preservation, the IPC, for 800 Amber Eras, or 60,000 years at the lowest of low balls, because again, Amber Eras are inconsistent, have been filling up planets worth of building materials for this Aeon to use. And Qlipoth pays them no mind at all. Imagine. The IPC is recreating that scene from WALL-E with the giant cubes of just stuff, and it just sits there. 800 Amber Eras of just doing that. And they show zero signs of stopping. My only guess is that there are at least 2 individuals that are confirmed emanators of the preservation that are in the IPC. Diamond and Tara Van Keen. But personally, I think they are emanators just because only high-ranking IPC members get their hands on the divine amber from Qlipoth's body that explodes from the wall in each Ember era. And using this in some probably secret backroom shady ritual, they fuse themselves with it and become emanators. This also makes sense of how Diamond is able to create the cornerstones, but that's just my theory. But as for who these 2 individuals are, Diamond, I'm sure you all have heard of before, is the head of the strategic investment department and has given portions of his power to the Stonehearts in a way currently unknown to us. But Tara Van Keen, who is 1 rank above Diamond at P48, doesn't share his sentiment, and his position is the head of the building material logistics department. The department responsible for the planets of quote-unquote building materials that Qlipoth currently ignores. So even though the Aeon couldn't care less about their offerings, giving the department head access to their power that they may or may not be doing does count for something and probably reinvigorated their determination. Like I said, Qlipoth is strange. In a way, they encourage the IPC, but then again don't at all and ignore them entirely. Also, the Emanator thing could just be the IPC experimenting on themselves and doing some weird stuff and making themselves Emanators, which wouldn't require Qlipoth's assistance at all, which is totally something the IPC would do and just fake that they have Qlipoth's approval when Qlipoth doesn't do anything at all. But that's just my theory and my personal bias against the IPC. And Qlipoth's utter negligence is what gives rise to people like Oswaldo Schneider, the guy who is such a sociopath that he is a Qlipoth fanatic because the Aeon lets him do whatever it is that he wants to do without batting an eye. I'm not joking. We have one quote from this guy, and he is glazing Qlipoth for not doing anything. It's like the worst version of silence is compliance. But enough about the worst faction in the game. I could complain about them forever, but what about the Firmament sect? Well, this faction is the previous dominant sect on the Xianzhou. Yes, in the time before Lan and after denouncing Yaoshu, the Xianzhou started looking for new paths to follow. And erudition was one, but preservation rose to dominance. Then Lan ascended and they quickly abandoned Qlipoth for Lan. But don't think this means they don't respect Qlipoth, they still do. Only 2 Aeons are currently referred to as arbiters on the Xianzhou, Lan and Qlipoth, so the respect and reverence is still very much there. Moving on to the Architects, these people pretty much just roam around the cosmos following in Qlipoth's footsteps and building giant walls to protect worlds from their enemies and cosmic catastrophes. Some of the Architects are connected to the IPC and some of them aren't, but what can't be debated is that their walls are rather effective, because using Belobog as an example, The wall protected them from the Antimatter Legion and the Eternal Freeze for the most part. But speaking of walls and what they do, here is where things get spicy, because in a removed curio called the Chance Jailbreak, we get a peek into the dark side of the preservation. Because yes, when you build a wall you are safe, but what happens when you are enclosed is that you have imprisoned yourself. And this is something the preservation always seems to do. Because remember, the IPC runs the jail system in the cosmos, and Qlipoth dealt with Tazironth by imprisoning them in amber. But that is also preservation, because now Tazi isn't going anywhere. They will always exist, so what this means for the cosmos as a whole is that when Qlipoth finishes this wall, the wall is fixed in place, encasing the entire universe in a prison of amber, a universe that is scientifically proven to be ever expanding. So what happens when galaxies hit this wall? Stars and planets alike being splattered on the walls intended to protect them. Qlipoth is choking the universe that they are trying to protect. So in essence, we don't want Qlipoth to finish the wall, and we are very fortunate that they move as slowly as they do. But I have another hypothesis. What if Qlipoth's goal is to imprison humanity? Because the Aeon hasn't explained their intentions to anyone. We are just assuming that what they do is for the benefit of humanity. But that is a bold assumption for an Aeon that pays humanity no mind. This Aeon clearly doesn't care enough to interact with humans, so can we really be sure that they're protecting us? Or is Qlipoth the Cosmic Jailor, seeking to stop humanity from breaching containment because of what we do to the cosmos, proven by their own followers? Which makes sense because Nanook sees the universe as tainted because of civilization. So in the perspective of these two Aeons, maybe we're the problem. And Nanook isn't the only one who thinks this way. And perhaps the only reason why Qlipoth stopped the propagation is because they were going to escape the confines of the wall. It is possible that nothing Qlipoth does is for the benefit of humanity at all. This Aeon is trying to imprison humanity, and the IPC is trying to help them. Because in the Honkai Star Rail universe, it is a universe based largely off of the real world in terms of planets, stars, galaxies, and things like that. Meaning that their galaxies are moving away from each other at breakneck speeds just like ours are. There cannot be a fixed wall around the cosmos, or every single world is fated to slam into it and shatter on impact. And I would say it would take billions or even trillions of years for this to happen, but the Xianzhou flagships have already witnessed the confines of the wall. So odds are we don't have as much time as you think we do. And that is just one side of the wall. If the wall is ever finished, humanity is quite literally smothered to death by the Aeon of Preservation with no hope of escape. And the sad part is, it doesn't even have to be Qlipoth's intention to imprison us. But regardless of their intention for creating this barrier, the ending is the same: the slow and painful suffocation of humanity. And the IPC should know this better than anyone else, because even from a business sense, if it's not expanding, it's dying. So once again, the fate of humanity is on a timer. Learn how to deal with the Leviathans or get choked out by Qlipoth's wall of protection. Because the more you think about it, a cosmic wall made of solid material like amber and crystal that is fixed in place and cannot expand with the universe that it is encasing is a terrible idea. And because of this, Qlipoth needed their own video. Because this is Honkai Star Rail Aeon Ascensions Explained. Yeah, it turns out Qlipoth is just as evil as the IPC. This video was supposed to include Tazironth as well, but as I kept writing, I had a Chef Skinner moment, and when I looked back at how long the script was, yeah, Tazi's gonna need to wait for the next episode. But rest assured, once again, there is always so much to talk about with this game, and we are learning more and more about these Aeons with every single patch. So I may take breaks, but this series will be finished. Because you guys have proven to me that you love it, and I sure love it, and this is our own Genius Society research project together. So here's to more discoveries. I think I uncovered a huge secret here. What do you guys think? be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.